you. Thank you very much. First of all, I must thank Terry Wogan for giving me this opportunity. I think it's his way of making sure he gets his job back. I'm using his dressing room, by the way, of course. It's a very, very simple little place, sparsely furnished, 2 mirrors and a throne. No, I mustn't. This job is really, to be honest, my first day, this job is very hard work. It's just not, you know, sitting in a chair. In fact, your feet don't touch the ground. Which is, yes, well, I suppose that's why they thought of me, you see. So you got... Actually, the first I heard about this was at the BBC Christmas party. Hello, wait a minute. There's a familiar face at the back. Oh, sorry, no. Sorry, it's a mistake. Somebody's left the double doors open at the back. I thought it was Bernard Manning yawning. Anyway, we were at this BBC Christmas party. The old Lugazade and Brasso going round. The BBC chaplain is leading us in prayer, and we just got to the "and lead us not into Thames Television" when the head of... Yes, there is one there. When the head of Light Entertainment put his hand on my shoulder. It's a small gesture of affection he uses when his legs are going. And he said, "Terry Wogan is going on holiday." Oh. Well, yes, that's exactly what I thought. So I got a couple of quid out. I thought he was taking a collection. He said, "And while Terry is while he's in Brighton," he said, "I want you to take his place." Actually, he's not gone to Brighton at all. He's gone on a lightning tour of Kenya. They strap you to an ostrich and fire a gun. So I propped the head of Light Entertainment up against one of the waitresses, and I said, "I'm sorry, I think you have mistaken me for Gloria Hunniford." It does happen, you know. "I think you'll find she's in the broom cupboard with Ray Moore." I said I should give him a couple more minutes if I were you. Excuse me, wait a minute. There's a chap holding up a board which appears to be a message from the religious department. "For God's sake, get on with it," it says. Right, we have got guests flying in from all over the place, except Michael Heseltine. Well, no, I'm afraid he couldn't get the helicopter he wanted. Later in the programme, I'll be talking to fellow comedian Tom O'Connor and the lovely Jane Asher. And there'll be... Thank you very much. And there'll be music from half of Duran Arcadia. But right now, please welcome the doyen of interviewers, bronzed and fit after his first trip to a desert island, Mr. Michael Parkinson. Well, thank you very much, Michael, for risking your enormous reputation on a novice interview like this.
Not at all.
Very kind of you to come along, very kind. Do you remember the very first interview you did, the very first...
Well, the most significant interview I did, I suppose, was about in 1971 when we started a talk show, and we couldn't get anybody to appear on it. You know, agents were fighting shy of it because we'd only just started. And we were looking for a guest who might impress agents, and we decided that Orson Welles at that time was the name that would unlock all the doors. And we finally got him. He was making an advert in Spain, and he put us through hoops to get to London. He made us take 2 seats out of a British Airways flight so he could lie down on the aeroplane on the way. We said, "Sit down." And he came... I was in awe of this man, and I'd worked really hard. I spent a week preparing the interview. I got the questions all written out. It would be a one-man show, an hour. And he walked into my dressing room at the TV centre, dressed entirely in black, with a black cloak on. And he looked down at my questions, and he said, "Young man, what are those?" And I said, "They're questions." And he said, "Can I look?" And he picked them up, and he tore them up and put them into a waste paper basket. And I said, "What do we do now?" He said, "We talk." And we went on and did an hour, and he was wonderful. So I remember him particularly as being the first sort of really big star that I interviewed.
Right, but very nerve-wracking because you weren't sure when you started talking they'd be able to do the hour, isn't it?
Well, you were sure with Orson Welles.
Yes.
I'll tell you what, if you've got to have 3 Orson Welles waiting behind there, mate, you'd have no problem at all. Absolutely not at all.
What's the key? I mean, I know you have a list of questions. You know, obviously, you have to be truly interested in what you're going to do.
Yeah, I think the key is actually learning when to shut up.
Yes.
I think that's the key to good... And that wasn't a criticism. No, I mean, I think that good interviewers are good listeners. I think that
Yes.
there's a point in an interview where you actually become a kind of psychiatrist. I mean,
Yes.
you actually let people come in. So body posture is important. I mean, relationships, leaning into somebody, meeting each other eye to eye.
Right.
Your case, that could be a bit of a problem, couldn't it? I don't know. But I mean, also too, but on this thing about the thing about silence, if you watch, I mean, I think Alan Wicker is a wonderful interviewer. You watch Wicker at times. I mean, he'll ask a simple question. He'll say, "Where were you born?" And the man will say, "Pudsey," and Wicker will go. And the man says, "Well, it's a dreadful place, Pudsey. I ate it." And Wicker will go, and I shot my granny there. Now he's not said a word. He's made you by putting the onus on you to talk. He's put the pressure on you. And it's a very, very clever way of interviewing. Don't ask too many questions.
No, right. So there's always a wee bit more if you just leave the gap.
Exactly, because the person sitting opposite you should be more nervous than you are. So therefore would feel it much more beholden upon him to break the silence.
Right, right. In this case, it's the reverse. And disasters.
Too numerous.
You have,
to
I mean, the
mention.
most wonderful. I mean, I have the tape at home, which I adore watching, of the best of Parkinson. I mean, and you have been present, I mean, at the most wonderful kind of theatrical moments, haven't you? I have, you know, the section of musical people with Grappelli and Judy Menuhin and Tormey and Duke Ellington and Peterson and Astaire. I mean, it's just
Well, that's
pure.
wonderful to meet your heroes like that, and
Well,
that's when the job's worth doing.
Right.
The other side of the coin, of course, is when it all goes terribly wrong, because
Right.
in a talk show, as you know, I mean, a situation like this, you're live, there's no script at all. And, I mean, I always thought that what we should have, a piece of equipment, we should have an ejector seat, a button that I could press if I do an interview, and if you weren't working, you go straight to the roof, you know, just get rid of them. No, I mean, the problem only arises, I think, most people, when they come on your show, they want to talk to you. But if they've had a drink, say, or if they've inhaled certain substances you don't buy at tobacconists, or something like that, if they're tired and emotional, in other words, it can be a problem.
Yes.
And that's happened. I mean, I've had some wonderful disasters, but they've always been because of that. I mean, I once did a one-man show with Robert Mitchum, who was tired and emotional for many reasons. And throughout the entire interview, he called me kid, and the most I ever got from him was yup or nope. And we'd done 45 minutes of a 60-minute show, and I was absolutely at the end. I mean, I got one more question to ask, which is, what am I doing here? And I said to him, has anybody ever taken a swing at you in a bar? And he said, yup. Oh. And I thought, no, I can ask him. I said, well, where? He said, once, he said, I was in a bar, he said, in New York. He said, and a man came up to me, he said, Mitchum, he said, give me your autograph. I said, you're very rude. The man said, I'm going to take you outside and beat you up. And I said, you're not going to do that, I'm going to beat you up first of all. I said, well, what did you do? He said, I put my hand on the man's head, I took my fork from the bar, and I pushed my fork right the way through his mouth, and I pulled it out the top of his head. And I looked at him, and the audience is absolutely still. I said, are you pulling my leg? He said, yup.
Very good. Very nice at the end, yeah. Very good. So, what guests should one avoid then? I suppose obviously Mitchum.
Drunks.
Drunks and Robert Mitchum.
Yeah, and Robert Mitchum and people like that. I mean, people who go to sleep on you. I once had a politician fall asleep on me. And on the talk show, on a live program like this, it was the last item on. I did my introduction. As I'm doing my introduction, I heard the producer say to me, I think your interviewer has fallen asleep. And I turned around, and I could tell he was alive because bubbles were coming out of his mouth. And I had 5 minutes to talk to him, and I actually did an interview. I mean, I couldn't say, what shall I do? And so I'd say to him, what do you think about the situation in Kenya? I suppose you think it's very, very bad, yes. And what about the state of... And I did question and answer for 5 minutes. And we closed the show, and we woke him up, and he said, what happened? And I told him. He said, did you ask me about NATO? I said, yes. He said, what was my answer? I said, you're for it. He said, very good, well done. He said,
was that in the setup when there were, perhaps you had two guests? Because when you did the show, you very often had 2 or 3 guests.
No, that was a solo. That was
dropped off
that was
during
a local.
you.
Yes, that was. Of course.
Well, not of course. Because I remember when I did it with you, there was a lady. There was a lady, another lady guest, if you remember, Florence Desmond. And
yes.
She went on quite great length, and I didn't know whether to interrupt. I mean, when you're with 2 people, it is more difficult in a way.
Yeah, but it can be wonderful as well, actually. That's when it really works. I think those are the best shows, when you put 2 people together, particularly extraordinary people who you normally wouldn't. I mean, it's actually, the nice thing about a talk show is basically, the way you should look at it, is that you're the guest at a dinner party, but you've got the right to invite whoever you want from the entire world. And you're the host at that party. And what you do is actually you pull your chair up there and you invite the world to sit there and look over your shoulder and listen to what's happening. And that's really when it works, I think.
And what about fail-safe guests, where you've had some wonderful...
Fail-safe ones, well, I mean, obviously the good talkers, I mean, the Kenny Williams, the Malcolm Muggeridges, the Jonathan Millers, people like that. Funny men, I love funny men.
Yes.
Billy Connolly, Tarby, you know, people, Les Dawson, Milligan, people who can be funny without telling jokes. My favourites, my very favourites of all, they were old people. See, one thing about old people is they don't give a damn. They'll be honest. They don't have to bother. If you're 83 years of age, it doesn't matter if you insult somebody. Because,
that's right. Oh, political attitude.
That's right. And so people like Dame Edith Evans, I was in love with. Ben Travers. I mean, Ben was 93 when I last interviewed him, and he was wonderful, wonderful, stylish man. And I remember he died about sort of 2 years later, but he was 93 and still working. And he was telling me on the programme about the play he was writing, another farce. And I said, what's it like? He said, very good indeed. He said, you know, rather funny. He said, and quite sexy. And I said, well, what does a 93-year-old man know about sex? He said, I have a very good memory. And he had the best epitaph of all. We were talking about epitaphs, because he wanted to talk about it. He knew he was going to die very shortly. And I said, what might your epitaph be? And he said, this is where the fun really starts.
Oh,
that was a lovely thought.
Very nice, yes. You talked about... Jimmy T really has done his best stuff, really, sitting beside you, I think.
Actually...
I mean, you get on very well, you're friends, and he is so spontaneously funny.
Exactly.
I love his company. But
that's right. He's a genuinely funny man. I mean, of course, he tells jokes like all good comedians, but he can be funny in any situation. He's very quick-witted.
Right.
I think, actually, comedians do work well on shows like this, providing the host is willing to give them it.
Yes, that's right.
You've got to let them go.
That's right.
You know?
And yes, if it's a tight situation where a comic feels rude or intrusive to go into it, then it's awkward.
That's right.
But if you're making little gaps and somebody's ready to spring in...
What you become in that situation, and it's very enjoyable too if you're starstruck like I am, is you become the stooge.
Right.
You know, and to work with great comics and to be their stooge. I mean, I work with all the great American comedians, Hopes, the Bennies and people like that. I work with all the great British comedians as well. And I love it, because I think being a comic is the hardest thing in the world to do. To make that lot laugh is difficult.
Well, it is, absolutely. You're absolutely right. I mean, when I did it with you, I was a bit nervous, because I've done since then a lot more talk shows in Australia, where we both go.
Right.
And therefore I've sort of feel freer now, but when I came in, I was a bit sort of set and worrying if the questions are going to... But you have to take a chance at it and take a...
But it's all down to the host. I mean,
That's
in the
right.
end, it's like getting in the car with a good driver or a bad driver. If you get in the car with a good driver and you put yourself in his charge, you're quite happy about that.
That's right.
If you put yourself in a car with a loony, I mean, you've had it. And it's exactly the same with an interviewer. If you become aware after 3 minutes that nothing's working, that he's sweating more than you are, that he's more nervous than you are, that he doesn't know where you're going, what do? You want to get out of the car.
That's right, that's true. You don't want to get out of the car, do you?
No.
Because now you're back to it on Desert Island, which the first programme went out yesterday.
That's right, and very much enjoying it. You know, it's sort of back to interviewing, which is what I like doing most of all, and I think I probably do best of all. Of course, you've done it, haven't you?
I've done it.
You did it. You are number 1200 and so. Mind you, we've got one or two new kind of sections since you did it. Well, let me ask you a couple of questions.
All right, yes.
Because I know what you were going to take on last time. You were going to take golf clubs and a golf ball.
That's right.
But the new questions are, what would you miss most of all on your desert island? What would you miss most of civilization?
I know what you think I'm going to say.
What?
Small women.
Yes.
But you're wrong. Big women.
Big women.
Yeah.
What would you not miss at all?
Small women.
Here we go. What book would you take?
Little Women.
And what would be the luxury item?
An inflatable Ronnie Barker with a foot pump.
Of course.
No, but I hope you continue enjoying. Are you changing the format of it at all? Not basically, really, apart from the questions at the end.
No, you can't change the format. The format's perfect. That's why it's lasted for 43 years. That's how long it's been going. The format is brilliant. I mean, Roy Plumley's genius was that he invented a show with a perfect structure. You can't muck about with that. It'll only change because I'm a different personality to Roy, that's all.
Well, I hope. Well, wish you. If you're having return guests, Michael, I would be delighted to come on it.
So,
and can I thank you for coming on here and taking a chance?
Can I?
And how have I done, by the way?
Well, you've done very well. Can
Yes.
I just look? You know, you did the show with me a long time ago on the BBC
Yes,
when we did
that's
the
right.
show, the TV thing.
That's
Well,
right.
one of the things when you asked me about being an interviewer, one of the things you should do is research.
Yes.
Right. When you've done your research tonight, and I'll be doing it very well. Thank you very much. So you've been very courteous and kind. But I got a piece of research when we did you, which I didn't tell you about at the time, which I found out tonight, right? And it's a memo, actually, from Mr. Duncan Ross, who was at the BBC. Subject Ronald Corbett, to the television booking manager, dated 1952. This must have been when you first came to the BBC and were first auditioned at the BBC.
Gosh, yes, right.
Now, there's an absolute genuine document, this, and I'll read it. It says, "It is seldom that I worry you with the name of any actors, but this young man, Ronald Corbett, is somebody I think you would like to know about. He is quite an oddity in that his height..." This is an official BBC memo. "He is quite an oddity in that his height is only 5 feet. And I can imagine that he could be useful to us in our queer documentary dramas."
Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Michael Parkinson, for coming on. Thank you. Queer dramas. I would like to now introduce you to a writer, a lovely actress, and a cook. And here they are, ladies and gentlemen, Jane Asher. Well, lovely to see you and lovely of you to come along.
Lovely to be here. Now, before we go into any deep searching questions, which I'm sure you're going to ask me, Ronnie.
Yes.
I do enjoy decorating cakes now and then. I don't know if you've
Yes,
heard
I hear
about
that. Oh, yes, the book.
it. And they asked if I could make a cake to welcome you onto Wogan. I only had a very few moments because I've been rehearsing today, so I've done a very quick impression, just for fun, to welcome you on the show.
Oh, isn't that lovely?
It isn't exactly you, but it's just an impression of you.
It is. Isn't that lovely? I always end up... It is nice, isn't it? Very nice. However skillfully it's done, I always end up looking like a Japanese general, you know. So, no, very lovely.
It is, of course, shortcake, you would have guessed that.
Very good, indeed. Actually, it reminds me of a job I had early in life when I used to model by standing on wedding cakes, you know. So, my dad was a baker and confectioner, so I know all about cakes. And you bake a lot of cakes, and you're into this. You're into the sort of cooking for children, really, aren't you?
Well, I cook for my own children,
Yes.
and because of that, I put together a book of some of the cakes that I'd done for them and for other members of my family.
Right.
I don't do it all the time. I do it just for special occasions, for their birthdays and so on.
Right. And special quick cakes.
The next book I'm doing, yes, is on quick cakes, because now that we've got 3 children, I don't have time for the very ornate, complicated cakes that I did for the other book.
No, right.
So I've done a book about throwing together some things from the supermarket and making them into a party cake for a child or adult very quickly.
Right. Have we had this? Have we seen the? We haven't seen the cake. The caption of the cake. I was looking forward to seeing that. There it is. That it is.
Oh, that's from the first book.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
That's rather like Bath Night at the Nolan Sisters, I call it.
So that was done for a photographer friend of mine who has quite a few girlfriends. So I thought for his 40th birthday, I would do him a cake with 40 naked ladies on it, just to make him feel at home.
Oh, very nice. And they're all still on there. Nobody's taken any. And another of you have ideas for fancy dress parties?
Yes,
That's
yes.
not-
I also did a book on fancy dress because, again, I found with children, they're always suddenly coming home and saying, "Mummy, I've got to be the Archangel Gabriel by tomorrow morning," you know, and you're suddenly stuck for ideas.
Right.
So I found we'd used so many different bits and pieces around the house, it might be fun to put it together in a book.
Right. And you've published that? Is that
Yes.
is that recently published?
No,
or is
that's
that
a couple of years ago.
Oh, right. And have
still
we got
going
some
strong.
pictures from that at all? We might go to see some. Oh, that is James Coburn.
Yes, that was a lovely, simple costume. I just painted a stamp, hung it round his neck and called it First Class Mail.
Very good. Very good. Fancy dress. When I go to a fancy dress party, I either go as Raymond Navarro or a day-old chick. I'm never. But now you do all these things: the cooking book and the quick cooking book and the special cake book, and you act and work and have the family and a husband to look after. I mean, it's normally very, very efficiently run life you have.
No, it isn't efficiently run at all.
I know you have help because you
yes,
say
of
that.
course, I have help. I couldn't possibly
Well,
do
no,
it
you
without.
couldn't. No,
but
no.
it's really chaotic. I wouldn't call it efficient at all. It's permanently juggling times and dates and who's going to pick up the children from school and who's going to do this and that. My husband works at home a lot, so that's a
Yes,
great
that's
help.
handy, so he can.
And also, being an actress isn't as difficult as one might think. Because at least I can take on a job that's going to last for 3 or 4 weeks,
Right.
if it's television,
Right.
or it's just going to be evenings if it's theatre.
Right.
And I can be at home with the children all day and go out to work in the evening.
That's
so
right.
although it can be tiring, you can schedule it round them and their school holidays and so on.
The theatre is probably a bit easier in a way, because once you've got the 3 or 4 weeks rehearsal, you at least
are at home most of the day. Yes. As I say, it does get tiring, because the time when you've got the children to bed, you're just about to relax with your husband, have a drink, have a bit of supper. Yeah. That's the time you can't have a drink. You've got to go out to work and sort of start all over again.
I thought you were going to say, because the other problem is you could come home and relax and have a drink, and then remember you've got to pick the children up at 11 o'clock, and you get stopped for drunken driving, leaving home, you know, to pick somebody up.
No, I haven't come across that problem yet.
And now you started off as a child actress, really, so you were in the business really
very young.
Very young.
Yes, it's extraordinary when I look back on it. I'm not quite sure how it happened. My parents weren't obviously theatrical at all.
No, your mum was a musician.
She was a musician, and my father was a doctor. I think they had friends who had children who were doing little bits and pieces in films and so on, and thought it might be fun for us.
Yes.
And very much thought of it as a hobby, something to do just occasionally between schoolwork, and not to be taken very seriously.
No, right. And at that time, it was much more acceptable for children of working class or upper middle class homes, or professional people's children, to come into the arts. I mean, it wasn't quite the scourge it used to be to go into the theatre.
Oh, I think that's true, yes.
So there's much more of it. And your brother was very successful in pop.
Indeed, he moved into the rock business.
He still is in the rock?
Yes, he manages singers and produces records.
Right. And all you and he and all the children have this gorgeous...
Well, when we were young, it was much brighter red when we were little. I think that was partly perhaps why we were put into showbiz, that we looked sort of cute, the 3 children with bright red hair. There's a dreadful joke that used to be flung around. We lived in Wimpole Street, so we were known as the Carrots of Wimpole Street, which was funny the first sort of dozen or so times, but it became a little difficult to laugh when somebody thought they were the first person to think of it.
And you don't tour so much now. You used to do, but I mean, I know you...
I can't really tour with the children. No, it's
right.
impossible. I take on tours where I can either take them with me if it's... Well, recently we toured with the play that we're just bringing into London.
And how's that
going,
by the way?
We toured in Brighton for a week, and it's going extremely well.
With Joanna Lumley. Give her my kind regards, because she's done a film with one of our 2 Ronnie's current series.
Indeed. And Simon Cadell.
And
Marcia Warren.
Marcia, who was wonderful in Stepping Out, wasn't she?
Yeah, terrific.
She's just on. And that's a great success, and you're enjoying doing it anyway.
Very much indeed,
Lovely.
Yes. Well, it's wonderful classic play. It's Blithe Spirit,
crowd
play, so it's enormously
And you've done 2
enjoyable.
weeks on the road. And
2 weeks on the road, we're coming into London now at the end of January.
Well, that's lovely. And last year you did Mistress with Felicity.
Yes.
I'm going to do it again for her?
Yes, we're doing another series this year, which I'm enormously looking forward to.
Oh, well, that's good. I enjoyed that very much, and you in it, if I may say.
Thank you very much.
Sort of heartless sort of role. I'm worried about you, because I thought he was very silly leaving you, really. Well, you know.
Thank you very much.
Or being naughty
on
the side.
Well, he didn't, did he, poor man? He could not make up his mind. I think that's what was charming about it.
Yes, the fact that there were no
children
to worry about.
I think if there had been children involved, it would have been too painful. Yes. I don't think you could have made it funny. Because
I didn't mean he ought not to have, I didn't want to offend Felicity, but I mean, I was trying to say that he shouldn't have left you in the first place, although Felicity was a nice place to go. But anyway.
Yes, I quite understand.
And it's coming again?
Yes, we're doing another series. That was a completely new area for me to do comedy.
I wondered that,
comedy.
in front of an audience, because sometimes actresses, we won't be long, he keeps doing that, but I know that actresses, no, they keep doing that, you've got more to say. No, I know that people, to do a live studio in front of 300 people is arduous.
Well, it's strange, because I'm used to doing comedy in the theatre, where you're playing just to an audience, and I'm used to doing television where you're just playing to the cameras.
Right.
But to have an audience, it was very odd at first. I didn't know whether to play to the cameras or to the audience.
Right.
But once I got used to it, after 2 or 3 episodes, I loved it, because you can sort of play to both at the same time.
Right. Well, what you chose to come up with was excellent, so it's lovely, so do it all again.
Thank you very much.
And we look forward to seeing it. Thank you for coming.
Thank
Best
you.
wishes for the play. Love to Joanna Lumley and everything else. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank
Jane
you
Asher.
very much indeed.
My mother always told me never to make a promise I couldn't keep. Well, here's one I can keep. The Promise, sung by Arcadia. Thank you very much. Wonderful piece.
I never thought I'd meet anybody in the world shorter than Andy Taylor.
He's got lifts on, to be honest. I mean,
yeah,
look,
the
you've got a little
baby
heel.
ones,
Got a little
not big
heel.
ones.
No, lovely. So what's happened to the rest of the Duran? What's the you divided up and...
Well, at the moment, we're just finishing off this Arcadia project.
Yes.
And then in May, when we've all done our little things, Simon's going on a boating expedition and stuff, and then we're going to get back together as Duran.
Well, wonderful, in May.
Yes.
And because the reason it has to be that length of time is you're away on the boat, which you're joining where?
I'm joining the boat in Auckland.
In Auckland,
Yeah,
right?
I'm going down actually on Sunday. I'll be
wonderful.
actually starting the first leg on the 14th of February. But I
Right,
need
that
to
goes...
train.
And the first leg is from Auckland to...
Uruguay.
Gosh,
Round Cape Horn,
wonderful.
up there, yes.
Magnificent. You're very brave going back in the boat after the fright you had. I mean, we won't talk about that.
We won't talk about that.
But I mean, it must have been...
It didn't sink!
No,
Really?
it didn't. But I mean, it must have been you. Gosh, you remember that moment for a long time. Well, that's wonderful. And what about your new wife? Because you're recently
I know, you just
married.
can't trust women, can you?
Is she going in the boat? Or
No, she's going to stay.
You'll
at
meet her
home.
at
I'll
odd
meet
spots.
her around the world, yes.
Right,
I think she
right.
wants to get rid of me already.
Well, what about any plans? I've been asked to ask this. Any plans for baby Le Bons?
I told you just can't trust women.
Oh, you can't. Well, thank you for coming on. All the best of the boat and the trip to Auckland. Give them all my regards
Thanks
in
a
New
lot.
Zealand. Best for the record.
you.
Thank you very much.
Ciao, thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Lovely, excellent. My last guest this evening starts his new BBC series on Friday, and he's with us tonight. So will you please give a big welcome to Tom O'Connor. Well, it's delightful to meet you because although we've probably waved across rooms at kind of receptions and things, we truly have never really...
We've never met before, never spoken, really.
Never spoken before. No. Not sulked, but we've just not spoken.
That's right.
Oh, dear. So, I mean, you started off... You came into the business, I know, a sort of strange route because you were a school teacher when you started.
That's right,
and
yes.
you mixed both, actually, at the same time, didn't you? Just taught in the day and...
And I worked the sort of clubs in Liverpool at night, that's right.
Yeah,
yes.
right.
But of course,
Interesting.
it's a very similar profession in actual fact because of the kind of control over an audience, the control over a class, you know.
That's right.
This is not as funny as teaching, this profession.
No.
I mean, I didn't realise how funny teaching was until I got to deputy head.
Yes.
In fact, which is higher than that, acting head, because the head was ill.
Oh, yes.
That's when you earn your corn, you know. And it was a secondary school, and it was the head's office for some reason was on the second floor. And I'm sitting there, acting head, saying, we'll put the school right while he's away. Don't leave it to me, you know.
Yes, yes.
And this great big lady came, I mean, talking large now, you know, it's
Yes.
like this. Came
Oh,
up
yes.
these 2 flights of stairs. And she said, I've come to tell you why my son's off today. He's got diarrhea. I said, well, why didn't you send a note? She said, if I could have spelt it, I would have done.
Straight into the act that night in the club.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Because you were doing the clubs at the same time as the teaching.
Yes.
So how many? I mean, you might do 2 or 3 clubs at night and be up in the morning to do that.
And I used to sleep in shifts, yeah.
Gosh.
Half an hour here, half an hour there. It was amazing, yeah.
Amazing, really. And then you continued to do that until the club sort of took over and you thought, well, I'll forget about the day job sort of thing, was that?
And go on and literally just do it full time for a gamble for a year.
Yes.
And of course, in those days, I'm talking about 72 now, it wasn't so much a gamble because there were lots of teaching jobs and lots of clubs, you see.
Right,
So, I mean, I was only risking my deputy headship by leaving.
right.
And, and big fat ladies coming up 2 flights of stairs, you know.
To tell you about diarrhea.
Yeah.
Very nice. And in the clubs in those days, I mean, unfortunately, they aren't what they are anymore, aren't there?
Yeah,
Aren't
that's right.
many. And those that are sort of becoming smaller and smaller. So there isn't the place for people to learn. Right. But in those days when you were in clubs, you were sharing the bill with obscure acts of all sorts and things.
Well, that's right. I mean,
Musicians,
my worst experience was I went to this very hard club and everyone said, don't go.
No.
You know, the money isn't safe.
No.
Which is the worst thing, right? Do you ever get nervous? Only when I'm not paid.
Yes.
And the money isn't safe and everyone dies. And I said, OK. So I arrived and the fella said, we want you to do 3 shows. I said, I couldn't possibly. I know better acts than me who can only do 1 here and they're struggling. He said, well, if you'll do 2, the speciality act will do 3. I said, OK. And I said to my wife, we've got to see this bloke. What kind of a speciality act? Magic or what? Can do 3 spots in a very hard club.
So we watched, I can't remember the bloke's name, but this poor soul came out for his first show, and it was all men, and they're like this, you know.
Oh, yes, yes.
Faces you get tired of kicking.
Oh, yes.
And this poor fella came out in a loincloth, and he started to chew razor blades and stick pins and needles through his mouth. And what is it? There's blood coming down his face, you see. Then he got these bricks, and he broke them with his head. Boom, like that. All these big blue lumps have gone on that, you see. And the audience just sat like that. Nothing. So he went off to nothing. And I went on, died on my feet. His second spot, he came out, loincloth again, you see, and the congealed blood and all the things still there, the lumps.
No stitches there.
Nothing, no. A couple of scotch. And he broke 4 pint glasses and laid them on the floor, and he lay on top of them, and 4 guys stood on him. And he stood up, and his back was in ribbons, you know. And the audience are going, phony, you know. And he went off, and I said, we've got to see his third spot. What can he do to follow that? But as I sit in this chair, he walked on immaculate in the tuxedo, the whole business, the dicky bow, the cufflinks and everything, for his third spot, the blood still here, the lumps on the head, and sang, "It's the Good Life."
Very good. It's not true, is it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, dear. It's what and leave show business, one of these. What and give up
Leave
show
show, that's
business.
right,
It's Hecklers, clubs?
I've had a few, yeah. I've been very lucky, in fact, because I talk very quickly. I mean, and I don't let them in. I do one-liners.
I tend to do that. You know, stamp it very early that you're not going to have any.
That's right.
That's
yeah.
right.
I learned that from watching people. I watched this comedian when I used to be a singer, you know. I'm better now. But I was a singist and I used to play the guitar and what have you. And I watched this comic struggling in Liverpool. He really was fighting the fight, and the audience were like this, you see. And they must have heard the gags. He was quite funny, but you know. And suddenly he told this one line, and from the restaurant in the corner came, and he said, "Oh, thank you very much." And the fellow said, "I'm just getting the sauce out the bottle, pal." We mustn't let these people in.
Oh, no,
you know,
no,
don't
no.
let them. Don't. So I started to collect true stories about people who'd suffered in shows, and one of my favourites was, I mean, a wonderful comic, Freddie Parrotface Davis.
Oh, gosh, yes.
wonderful, funny man, and a nice man
Nice
too.
man, right.
And
he's in management in bits and pieces now.
That's
He
right,
puts
yeah.
on shows, that's right. You know, he used
I had to give him a lift to a club one night. They said, "Will you give this man a..." And nobody had I thought, what a nice fella. No one's told me he's a lunatic. You see. So I'm driving along with this man here, and there's a lady at a bus stop, and Freddie said, "Stop the car, stop the car." So I think he knows her. So I pulled over the road, wound the window down. He leaned across me and he said, "Excuse me, love, do you know where Kingfield Street is?" She said, "No." He said, "Well, you go up here." And you know, that lady stood by the car saying, And as we drove off, she was thanking us. "Thank you." And I thought, we should harness this. This is funnier than jokes. What am I doing an act about, you know, did you hear the one about the Irish fellow?
Right,
when there's people like this.
That's right.
So I started to watch people, and I started to listen. My grandfather was wonderful for this, because my granddad is one of these guys who, you know, he lives in the past because it's cheaper.
Right.
And he said that all the inventions in the world they could have had, like the soluble life raft and the self-writing aspirin, you know.
Right.
And he has this wonderful way with words. And he comes out with great things like, "How come every time you dial a wrong number, it's never engaged?"
Yeah, that's right.
If they laid all the old age pensioners in the world end to end, about half of them wouldn't be able to get up again. Yeah, these are real.
That's another one too, but why is there always an end date on sour cream? You know. Eat before it becomes milk again, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And his biggest dread, of course, is a nuclear missile will hit him on the head and not go off. And he's the only one killed. You know, cancel the war, just killed an old fella.
And you've got a new series starting on
Friday night.
Right, because you've just finished at Inverness in Pantomime Eden Park.
Wonderful
You're off,
place.
and you're off. Wonderful place. It's a
Yeah.
lovely theatre, isn't it?
Isn't it so,
Beautiful.
yeah. Nice
And
people too.
Nice people, and you're off trying to get so much in here. And you're off to on the Canberra.
Yes.
You board the Canberra when tomorrow?
Tomorrow morning, and we're off to the Sun. Good thing, of course, very quickly, is I'm joining it when I'm as pale as everybody else.
Yes, that's very good.
You start, because last year I did that, and I lay in the sun, because I just go this colour, you see. That's
Oh,
me.
yes.
And I lay in the sun every day with all the different sunscreen, 5 on my legs and 8 on my eyes and 15 on the nose and all that, you know, the bits of paper.
Right.
And we ended up in Jamaica, and I'd been lying there for about 2 weeks with all the business, and I thought, right, and we're walking through a marketplace in Jamaica, and this lady said, "Hey, pink man," and I knew it was me.
I know, the first embarrassing day on holiday. It's awful. Well, that's wonderful. Well, I hope you have a wonderful time on the Canberra.
I'm sorry I'm missing Australia. You're going to Australia,
Yes,
aren't you?
I don't go to Australia till May, but we're going for five months then, which we enjoy very much.
My only time there, if I can tell you very quickly, I was in a hotel with the jet lag business,
Yes.
and I'm lying in the hotel with Do Not Disturb on the door, and at 7 o'clock in the morning, the door opened and a great big busty Australian lady said, "Tea?" I said, I'm tea? And she gave me this mug of tea, and as she went out the door, she said, "Do you take sugar?" I said, "No." She said, "Well, don't stir it."
Well, thank you very much. Give me the wine. Thank you very much for coming on. Success with the Canberra and with the series, and lovely to meet you. Ladies and gentlemen, Thomas. Is that all right? Excellent. Oh, there's another message from the religious department. The end is nigh. And the bar is closing in 5 minutes. Oh dear. There isn't time for the song. Someone was going to sing When Irish Eyes Are Smiling, but he's fallen off the horse again. And time has flown by. It's such a short show, maybe that's why they thought of me. I'll be back on Wednesday, when my guests will include David Frost and Mary Montgomery. So it's good night from me, and it's good night from him. So good night from me, and good night from you. Good night. Well, I say good night from me. I didn't help you. Oh, good. Oh, good. Thank you for coming. I didn't help you out to keep you out. Yes, I will do. Yes. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being such a lovely audience and helping me through this first one. If you've enjoyed the show, tell your friends. If you've enjoyed the show, tell your friends. If not, remember my name's Ronnie Barker. It's quite easy. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.